comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the unholy trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California. Kind of an impromptu special edition today. We had in our fair town of Alameda a renters coalition protest at City Hall. And in itself, you would think, well, not much news. People are protesting the incredible rate increases that landlords are putting tenants through, along with a process of evictions where they just evict people for no reason other than to bring in new tenants that will pay much, much, much more in rent given the housing crisis in Northern California. And we are right across the bay from San Francisco, and basically an island off of Oakland, and rents have been sky high. That in itself wouldn't call for me to do a show. I've already interviewed a woman, wonderful woman in town, Linda Weinstock, and if you want to go back on the archives of the shows, about a month ago, her giving a beautiful account, a splendid account of what this costs our senior citizens. And there's not much more I could have said about the current situation. But lo and behold, another social problem crosses the wire, and it's almost like a clusterfuck of bad things happening in our country. And one of the bad things is police department, an epidemic of police violence and craziness, not just in Alameda, but all over the world, all over the country. And my guest tonight, Dwayne, what's your last name? You don't have to give your last name. Dwayne was at the meeting tonight and took some videos that were absolutely incredible. This guy is protesting. Fellow in town who's active in the Renters Coalition, a fellow by the name of John Klein, and he's protesting. All of a sudden, these cops come in. I swear to God, it looks like.
Let me interrupt you for a second, Zig. That's not John Klein. John Klein was arrested later.
Oh, okay.
There were two arrests.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Boy, I didn't know that. I thought that was John Klein. And John is just a real nice guy. How could he get beat up like that? He wasn't. The first guy that you got the film on was being beat up to a pulp. It's like Cop Watch right here in Alameda, California. These two big, gigantic cops from the NFL on steroids come in there with their bald heads and their batons, and they wrestle this guy to the floor. He's bleeding. They've got him. It's just like, you explain it. You took the picture.
Yeah. So I had been. I'd spoken earlier in the meeting and had ceded some space down in the main council room. It was an overflow situation. And so I had stepped downstairs, and during the time I was downstairs, a group of the renters decided to go up, and they were chanting outside of the city chambers, city hall, city council chambers. And as I was sitting there, I saw a couple of officers head up to the upper third floor there, where the hall, where the council chambers are. And so I, it's my instinct. I do video for a living, so I grabbed my cell phone and just started recording.
Follow them.
So
follow them upstairs.
Yeah.
I see you following them.
Yeah, and so it seemed like it was going to be calm for a second, as if people get a chance to look at the video footage or anything. I started to walk back downstairs so I didn't see what started really at all. But I turned around to see one of the officers, grabbing a gentleman, kind of roughing him up against one of the walls and then pulling back around and slamming into the ground, at which point I did my best to basically cover the entire scene as well as I could, and it was, he was bleeding. There were two guys wrestling him to the ground, it was, what amazed me, it was that, this is an issue, obviously, that has tensions in the city running really high. Definitely the group of renters there felt that the speaking time had been heavily favored towards landlords, particularly at the beginning of the meeting. That was why they came up and began at first chanting, I believe it was "Let the renter speak, let the renter speak," and so again, I didn't see what started the situation, but the arrest, I hate to use the word, but the arrest looked brutal to me. I would challenge anyone to go out there and look at the footage and make that judgment for themselves. Is that a brutal arrest by a cop? I do not think by two cops. I do not think the situation was handled particularly well. But I will leave it up to your listeners to go out there and take a look at it and make that judgment for yourself.
You put the video up on YouTube. You put the video up on YouTube. Do you have a channel on YouTube yourself?
Yes, I do. If you just search for my name, Dwayne Moles, it's Dwayne, DUANE, Moles, MOLES. And so I've already been contacted by NBC Bay Area and one of the other channels. I think it was Cron. It might have been KPIX. I have to look because I made sure to send it into as many outlets as possible. There were a couple of media outlets that were at the meeting covering it because it was, it was a substantial enough piece of policy being covered and a heated enough topic that, there was already some coverage there. And this just changed the complexity. The meeting was broken up for 30 minutes or so, I would guess. At which point the mayor came out and said, we're going to try to continue with this meeting and make a decision on the moratorium tonight. I've not yet heard if the moratorium passed or not. But I know for a fact that the mayor came out there in the hallway to try to say, here's a process by which we're going to try to continue this meeting, try to give people fair time, both sides of the issue, and the crowd parted the way. So she saw the blood on the floor. What happens now? And the night of, it's an hour or two later. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, I can assure you, having known Trish Spencer for a number of years, she's repulsed by what happened. When she sees that film, she will be absolutely repulsed by it. Why? Simply because she's a human being. I challenge you to find a human being that wouldn't react in a way would say, where the heck are we? Have we not progressed since Kent State?
No.
Are we? It's getting worse. It's getting crazy. And when it comes to your own city, it makes you go, whoa. You read about things. Everybody, it happens here, it happens there. This isn't Alameda.
Yeah.
This is Mayberry, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, I was personally shocked by some of the tenor of the discussion. A couple of examples. I moved here in 1998. It was not a fun time to move here. It was, that first .com bubble of housing, and it was rough and tumble then. And when I moved here to California, literally the only town I've ever lived in all of California is Alameda, California. I moved here in '98. I've lived here ever since, so 17 years and change at this point. Part of why I like it is the small town, and generally we think of it as having civil discourse. That's one of the things I think it comes to small towns is treating people neighborly. And a couple of examples, I heard, definitely groups coming out of the meeting, and it was, people were flinging insults at each other on each side of this issue. I don't think there's a place for it in this. I mean, can we govern in an unpolarized way? Can we come to something where people aren't, basically, chewing each other out and using words that they wouldn't use in front of their own mother? I personally would.
Is that a rhetorical question? Because I could say, no, not in the age we grew up in. That wouldn't be acceptable. But in an age when the rich, the have-it-alls, are themselves polarized and rewarded by not having to pay taxes and by able to take their money offshore and do this, that, and the other thing, and at the expense of the working class, which is now the working poor, and they're trying to get the working poor out of Alameda so they can bring in the rich people. And don't you think the City Hall has a vested interest in the landlords charging as much rent as possible, because then they could up the property taxes? So big business is in collusion with organized, first of all, organized religion and government. The three of them, the unholy trinity. And I can see where people are getting rebellious. How about the people in Oakland? You don't think the people riding the 51 down Broadway in Oakland are disillusioned by the system? Why haven't they protested? I don't know. Why haven't they revolted? What happened to the Occupy movement? There's so much that hasn't changed. Occupy movement was peaceful for the most part. There was backlash. Those that threw in a bunch of gangsters. They took the onus off of what was going on, and the big guys won. They didn't win it all. It caused a dent to the Occupy movement, but it sure could have been better. Sure could have been more.
Yeah, I just, I was a little taken aback. I was sitting there waiting. We had full capacity, like I said, up in the council's chambers. I had been sitting along the wall. They allowed one wall for people to stand. It was a fire code issue, and so they had moved a bunch of people out, and there was some people I know that at the last minute were giving up their seats, and so there was a gentleman there from City Hall who turned to me and a group of other people who were standing along the wall and said, "Okay, if those people are leaving, we will have you four go over and take those seats," which spurred this reaction from the gentleman behind me. As the four of us went to sit down, they tried to say, no, you can't have these. I said, well, the gentleman working the door said that we should come and sit here. And I said, well, he's wrong. And so, as I was sitting down, this person doesn't know me from anything. And as I'm sitting down, he just says, "You disgusting people." And I'm like, we haven't even started the meeting. This person doesn't know why I'm there. And this is the type of level of discourse I think has no place in what is an important discussion about what the future of this town will be. Obviously, Alameda is feeling the pressures of a really broader issue with housing in the Bay Area. And when I got a chance, I was lucky enough to get a chance to speak, and this is not. I try my best to say this is not an us them. It can feel that way sometimes, but I try to keep myself open, and there are good landlords in this town, and those are not the people we're talking about with these moratoriums and with rent control.
I hope they're just targeting the big boys, the Gallagher and Lindsay, the Catholic Church, the people that own both residential and commercial. They need to. The coalition needs to be between those two because they play off each other. And the higher the rentals, the higher the business, the commercials. The higher the residential, the higher commercial rent, and vice versa. And the same people own commercial property and residential property. And I've said this before on Alameda sites, the Catholic Church owns an inordinate amount of land in this town. Now, aside the fact that there's only one city in America, as far as I know, and that's up in Alaska somewhere, that challenges the tax exemption that all organized religions get in this country, that is, at this point, undeserved, simply.
I mean,
let them compete with the astrologers. Let them just make their way without horning the city. Do you know what these people cost in the way of property taxes that go unpaid? How they bilk the city for grants to upgrade their business fronts, does the Catholic Church. And they get grants to upgrade their businesses on the Gold Coast and right out here, and pay no property taxes, pay no taxes, no sales taxes. They have the biggest school going where they charge an outrageous amount and no taxes whatsoever. They're killing the city. All organized religion all over the world is killing us. They polarize us more than anything. They preach from the pulpit. They politicize from the pulpit. Gotcha. Third time. That's not bad.
Yeah, I mean,
it's crazy. That's it. Go ahead.
To me, the bar. I mean, it doesn't matter to me who the people are. What I think is the issue becomes, 20 and 30 and 50%. We've heard this time and again, 50% rent increases. And these are the things that I think, the citizens and residents and, this Alameda's 55, I think is the latest number, 55% renters. Those are the people that need protections. And what we need protections from are not the good landlords. There are plenty in town that, keep
the mom and pop people that just renting out a duplex or whatever. We need protection from the Gallagher and Lindsays and all these crazies that go out and just went out and bought up a bunch of property and rent them out, and they're just making an incredible fortune. But don't think the city's not involved because, again, the more they get for rent, the more they get for property taxes. And there's another thing. They can't really change much because of state laws, the way it was explained to me.
Yeah, there's certain restrictions because of Costa-Hawkins that defines and allows for rent control, but also lists certain types of exemptions. For example, single-family homes that are being rented. There are certain restrictions which would pull any particular property that is, say, a single-family home, and there are other exemptions out there. Any rent control passed by local ordinance wouldn't apply. That ordinance wouldn't apply to it. So there's state law. I know there's some talk going on of trying to address that. State law, that's a bigger fight than I think a lot of people are sort of ready for now. But starting here, right in this town, trying to protect people from these, excessive, predatory, whatever we want to call them, these really high, rent increases. I believe a property owner has a right to a fair return on their investment. But fair, to me, that's a two-way street. Fair is about the relationship of one to another. And that's, what I really, really, fear for in this situation, is, there were issues that have come up before. I remember the heated arguments about the theater and the parking complex. And this feels like another issue that is kind of tearing apart of this town. And that's a fear I have, because I love this place, Like I said, this is the only place I've ever lived in California, and I wouldn't, as long as I can stay, I wouldn't dream of moving.
Glenn, where are you from originally?
I grew up in West Virginia, and then I did my undergrad at Harvard, so I was up in the Boston area for about 8 years, and then moved out here.
Ah, well, you and Jerry West.
Yes. I joined
Zeke
everybody
from Cabin Creek.
Yeah, Zeke from Cabin Creek is not very far from you can get there from about 40 minutes driving from my parents' place. You can get to Cabin Creek.
All right. Let me just ask you: did you have kin and critters?
I have many kin, and we had a lot of critters. In fact,
and you went to Harvard at the same time. You had kin and critters, and you went to Harvard.
I had a pet groundhog at one point in my life. My dad came home from work on a different day, and gathered the family and went out to his truck, and he said, "I got a little surprise for you." And he opens the passenger door, and there's a bed of hay and a doe. There's a doe, a baby deer right there, and we bottle fed it and took it to a animal preserve later, because once it's had that kind of human contact, you don't want to put it out with the hunters. So
they'll go right to the hunter and get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly. What was the biggest adjustment that you had coming from West Virginia to California?
Well, I had that bridge of living in Boston for a long time. So I had some adjustment to urban living when I first moved there. And then the hard thing, one of them is almost a stereotype of having a hard time making friends, because I did feel there was a little bit of superficiality, but I don't know that that's true. I think I was just young and not able to particularly navigate very well. Okay, here's the biggest problem I had. Driving in Boston, you vent your feelings on a daily basis. You roll down your window and you yell at people, and you get it out of your system. Here, people seem to. When I first went out here, one of my first reactions was, "Oh my God, the drivers are so polite," which I find laughable now. But then I found out that what they do is bottle it up and then go on these crazy road rage incidents. But no, I missed the fall. I was just back in upstate New York a couple of weeks ago, up to Hudson Valley, and saw the trees and the change, and it was hard. I missed the seasons. I moved out here in 98. The winter of 98 was an El Nino year. It literally rained for more than 40 days, so it was biblical. And I just wanted to, I was miserable. I was like, is this what it's like? And so, it took me a while to get used to some seasons.
And one final question: how'd you get into videography? Because I did a little video work, video documentary here and there. My kid is into it, but from the way you took those pictures, and you got to go to YouTube to see it, folks. Your hand is steady. You just go in and out at the right time. You're really good at it. What encouraged you to get into it, and who inspired you?
Well, I got out of college thinking I was going to go into a history program, a graduate history program, but got scared out of the academic life. Long story short, I talked myself into a production assistant researcher on a history documentary. Fresh out of college, lucked into that job, strung a couple more together. and tried to sort of make a living at that for a while, and it was tough, particularly moving out here, because that was all in Boston and Cambridge and Somerville and the surrounding areas. Then moving here, I sort of was disconnected from that community. My contacts didn't reach out here at that point. So I bumbled around a little bit and worked in communications for a big foundation, a large endowment in the city. And then when that calling was still bubbling in me, I needed to jumpstart my career, so I applied. Ended up going to Berkeley for a master's in journalism and studied documentary film there. And so that was really the thing that jump-started. Now, it's funny that I look at that. I'm very critical of my filming in that particular moment, just because, it's my profession now, and I'm,
right.
We're always critical of our own professions. But and I've been getting, as we've been sitting here talking, I got 2 or 3 texts of NBC. I think the national people want that footage. KTVU just sent a thing in. KPIX did it. Bay Area News Group is going to have access to it. And this is, I just, I don't know. It's in my nature. When I see something happening, I just, I trained in documentary, so what I want to do is document,
Beautiful. I hope
let people see it for themselves.
I hope you'll come back from time to time and keep us informed about what you're doing. You're articulate and you're talented technically as well, so that's a great combination. And
thank you, Zig.
A lot of luck. Thank you for being here. I want to talk to you a little off the air. I want to end the segment by imploring you and everybody out there to keep your dreams wet and your humor dry. Keep your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting stations and off the laps of clerics that wear dresses. All that is optional. You could do anything you damn well please, but just try it. It may work out for you or not. I just hope it does. Dwayne, you're a kick. This has been very impromptu, and I really appreciate your time, and I hope this gets out to as many people as we possibly can. It's some great footage of Americana spelled with a KKK. These cops are just out of hand, and it's a pleasure to talk to somebody who just had the opportunity to film it and did it right. So I got a scoop. Thanks, Dwayne.
All righty. It's a pleasure.
All right. Have a great one, my friend.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
I should follow up with all these people afterwards and say, by the way, I've got an FS7 camera I just happen to have.
Yes, if you should. Very well done, my dear. We sounded great.
I can hang up here now.